In 2002, I saw an advert for the Lifelines organisation, which arranges penfriends for condemned prisoners at various prisons in America. I decided that writing to a prisoner on death row would be a good idea, but I never imagined how my relationship with my pen friend Lewis would develop over the years. About 150 letters and cards later, I feel very much a part of his world, and I know he also feels part of mine. In the very first year he sent me this picture that he had made specially for me and my partner Graham. I must say he does have a tendency to romanticize. I had never seen anything quite like it before. The nearest style I can think of is tattoo art. I now know that the style is called Chicano, which is what Mexican Americans are called. It was invented in the 1960s to celebrate the rich cultural heritage of native Mexicans. Many Chicanos look back to their pre-Columbian heritage, and this is certainly true of Lewis. One of the functions of this art is to educate young Chicano people about the traditional history and values of their community. Lewis later began decorating the pages of his letters and selling this illustrated notepaper to his fellow prisoners. Sometimes his letters would arrive with decoration on the envelope too. Once Lewis injured his hand and couldn't draw. This was a bad time for him, but then he sent me this card with the message, "I've been drawing like crazy since my hand is back on track. Last week I spent many hours drawing non-stop. It feels good to draw. It's a blessing for me." Over the years I've known him, Lewis's artistic skill has developed a great deal. He's using more colour now, and I think the effects he manages to achieve with pens are wonderful. In this picture, "The World is My Ghetto," Lewis explains that a ghetto is a life of struggles and sadness with a lot of violence. But there is a part of the ghetto that's good, friends and family. We all try to remove the violence from our ghettos, but we succumb to the bad life. In this drawing, I'm bringing the good in and taking out the bad. Lewis keeps up with world news and often surprises me with his wide knowledge of all kinds of subjects. He is also very much involved with his family, who visit him regularly. Lewis has sent me photos of them taken during visits. When he sent me one of him and his mother, Esperanza, I couldn't resist turning it into a Christmas card to send to them. Lewis knows that every year I meet up with 5 of my former school friends, taking it in turns to host our reunion. He asked me to send him a photo of us all with our names indicated in order to produce this very special picture. I made copies for each of my friends. Lewis does other handiwork too. He knits for his relatives and prints fabric. Here is a scarf he made for me, far too precious to wear. And here is a photo of my 2 grandchildren wearing the baseball caps he made for them with their names on. In August 2017, I went to London to meet Nicola White. We are both members of Lifelines, and I had seen the San Quentin artwork that she'd put online, including some by my pen friend Lewis. 2 important things came out of that meeting. Firstly, she told me about small exhibitions of San Quentin art that she'd put on herself, both in London and California. Secondly, she encouraged me to think seriously about visiting the prison and made it seem easier than I had feared. You have to apply several months in advance to visit prisoners in San Quentin, first getting the status of approved visitors and then booking a visiting date and time. We first booked a visit at the end of February this year. The worst possible time, as it turned out, because a blizzard hit the UK and our flight to California was cancelled. Soon afterwards I rebooked another couple of dates in May, and this time we succeeded. There are many rules and regulations about what you can and cannot wear and take into the prison, with airport-style security to back them up. Yet as we stood in the queue awaiting entry to the visiting room, the atmosphere was light and friendly. We found the prison staff to be very welcoming, and despite the rather forbidding room, with men caged like animals, the wardens treated both visitors and prisoners with respect and friendliness. We were visiting in the company of Esperanza, Lewis's mother, and his sister Lorena. Both Lewis and Lorena spoke fluent English, and we spent a very happy 5 hours chatting about all sorts of things, telling stories and jokes. We were able to buy food and drink from nearby machines. Lewis told us he starved himself on visiting days because the food was better than the usual prison fare. After our first visit on the Saturday, I was eager to return on Sunday, and again we had a very enjoyable time with him. I was so very glad that we'd made the effort to go, and both Graham and I would be prepared to visit again. Lewis is naturally very excited about this exhibition, delighted that his own work and that of his fellow prisoners is reaching such a wide audience. I hope you will gain some understanding of the life of condemned prisoners in America through their artwork and some of their poetry, which Nicola has recorded.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to the poetry exhibition, Voices from the Row. My name is Steve Champion. I am on death row at San Quentin State Prison. I am a writer and author. It is an honor to be a part of this event. When you walk around in the room, you are going to see some interesting and amazing artwork. You also are going to be able to listen to poetry written and read by death row prisoners. Poetry is a universal language without borders. It transcends social, economic, and racial lines. It has arose in voices like Shakespeare, William Wordsworth, Walt Whitman, and Maya Angelou. But it also arises in the slums of India, in the interior of Africa, and today you will bear witness of the power of poetry echoing from the death chamber of San Quentin. Poets are the modern-day shamans. No matter where they are, they give language and deep expression to the human condition and aim to make sense of the world around us. This is what these poets on San Quentin's death row attempt to do. Our poetry isn't born from the tranquility of nature, or the sunny hills of a valley, or the quiet comfort of an office. There is no landscape of daffodils, green grass, or blossoming roses we can draw from. We live in a world born of conflict and contradictions, a world surrounded by concrete walls and razor wire fences, and guards patrolling gun rails 24 hours a day, carrying revolvers and rifles. Our world is besieged with a cacophony of noises that permeate the senses, from the slamming gates and the jingling keys and the guttural sounds of men who spend their time trying to avoid their demons. Our poetry is carved from a fortress of forced solitude and silent space we create within ourselves to help us to write, reflect, and experience a glimpse of peace and freedom. It is a temporal but powerful life-affirming moment. We hope this event will be insightful and a wonderful experience for you, that you come away excited but also curious, inspired, illuminated, and perhaps even transformed. Reaching beyond the walls. The dream hovers where even the senses can't touch it. Separating itself from the mind, it dances upon the moonlit surface, like art unfathomable in its reach, rising like the morning mist, free, only to disappear somewhere in the vastness, dancing to the mystic mind, reaching beyond walls.
My old Jermaine McKinnon. My mind is free. My body is caged. I seek serenity and call for better days. My spirit is strong. My physical is fit. This allows me to hold on and reconcile the present as a gift. My cage is isolation. My torment is daily. But my freedom is rooted in redemption. And your compassion helps me to get by daily. You are my daddy's recommended vitamin C that keeps me immune from a confined mentality. The end.
Hello, my name is Bill Clark. I've been a death row inmate at San Quentin State Prison in California for the past 20 years. Shortly after my arrival, I began writing poetry. It began as an expression of my experiences as a death row inmate and my life experiences in general. As I delved into it further, I began to absolutely love it. I am about to share a collection or a selection of my poems with you, and I certainly hope that you enjoy them. Thank you for your time and interest. This poem is titled A Cell with No Bars. I can't think of them as bars. If I do, I'll lose my focus, my perspective, my sense of reality. I can't acknowledge them as bars. If I do, I'll lose my compassion, my understanding, my sense of humanity. I can't endorse them as bars. If I do, I'll lose my courage, my will, my sense of direction. I can't accept them as bars. If I do, I'll lose my individuality, my purpose, my sense of productivity. I can't validate them as bars. If I do, I'll lose my morals, my principles, my sense of integrity. I can't regard them as bars. If I do, I'll lose my hopes, my dreams, my sense of being. I can't look at them as bars. If I do, I've already lost. Here's a poem I wrote titled Then I Cry. Freedom taken, life forsaken, steel bars, painful scars, mental strains, waste chains, concrete walls, collect calls, nothing's fair, hard to bear, mind games, nicknames, count bells, stairwells, masked strangers, constant dangers, jingling keys, trembling knees, lonely hours, faith sours, years wasted, hope tasted, questions why. Then I cry.
My name is Alfonso. I can't share with you exactly when it was that I first began to write poems. Actually, it just sort of happened throughout the years as a way for me to express myself regarding my experiences as well as some of the things that I observed throughout life. Also regarding my painting, it was back in 2001 when, before my mother passed away, she suggested that I take up a hobby, painting, as a way for me to, I guess, sort of reinvent myself. However, it wasn't until at least 10 years ago that I actually started taking it much more serious than I had been. And I really never shared this with no one until now, but most of my paintings revolve around the beauty of a female. And that's because it's a way for me to respect and honor not just my mother, but the beauty of all women. And so, with that said, I'll share with you a poem that I wrote called Smiles Like Yours. Some smiles are with pure love. Some smiles are with pure hate. Some smiles are really real, while other smiles are really fake. Some smiles are etched in betrayal. Some smiles are masked in shame. Some smiles are smiles of fealty, while other smiles are free of blame. Some smiles are a pleasant gesture. Some smiles are with disdain. Some smiles are just smiles, while other smiles are forged in vain. Some smiles are with deceit. Some smiles we actually adore. Some smiles are smiles of conflict, while others are just like yours.
I want to thank you for taking the time to read and listen to our poetry. This exhibition shows that poetry has the creative power to transcend prison walls and create beauty where it least expects to. I would like to expand on this idea, but I'll let Voices from the Row speak for itself. Thank you.